Hi there, Randy Green here. Let us continue our podcast series on past lives and how they influence us today. In this podcast, I want to talk about that life is the sum of our experiences. And I could put it even more technical. I could say life is the sum of the different types of energetic processes that we are either participating in or choose not to participate in. And it becomes very technical when you put it that way, but that's a way of deconstructing the words that we're dealing with so we don't get caught up in the thought forms that words are connected to. And this is old esoteric knowledge where we understand that each word, spelling, words, letters are combinations of sounds and symbols, and they are connected to different thought forms that links up to different layers of our reality, be it the mental layers or the astral layers or the bio layers. So when we talk about can the body have constructs of ideas of self, and we can say, according to the esoteric teachings, the body itself is made out of energies that were composed in a previous universal cycle. That's what I call the third cycle. So technically, yes, there is a type of intelligence. There is a type of experience of existence, but a very low-level dormant one that only really ignites as a kind of responds to the higher order energies from the higher order energy system. And that's what I want to talk about here. Some of these things I work with in the progression sciences, but in a different manner, because here I want to put things together in another way. So I'm not just repeating myself. You can do the progression sciences. You can begin with the free material where I kind of work with it. That's 2017 ideas. And then in the progression sciences, the course material that goes with the transition sciences, the advanced clearing work, and the template sciences, I go to a complete new level. It's alluding to and it's using the old material from my books and from the free material, but then put into a complete new context. Because as we develop our understanding of things, our cognizant awareness, which is, I want to put in some new words here. When I say cognizant awareness, you say, well, isn't that kind of a double? Because being cognizant means you're aware, but there actually is a difference. Look up being cognizant and being aware. There's actually two different ways, because cognizant is to cognitive processes. So that means the processes of mind, whereas awareness, you can have that awareness that the cell has, but the awareness the cell has is of its function. It's not as an I, it's of a function. So that's when we talk about the energy that has an intelligence, then there is an awareness of some sort, but it's not an awareness that has an I, but it's an awareness of a function. So that's important to understand. So when we talk about the emotional field that are composed of electrochemical energies and processes that goes with different levels of our physicality, similar to the biofield has its own purpose and function there that creates this physical form, which I'll not go into details with here because that's science in itself on a completely different level when we work with it from the understanding of a molecular structure that is connected and tied up to different forms of cube systems, elemental beings, and different levels of reality that composes what we understand as the molecular state that is also tied to the quantum flux fields, which is an artificial construction made by alien technology that is created as a buffer between the original outer domain reality fields bordering into the fourth dimension artificial reality constructed by alien technology from where they can have adjacent realities connected to our physical little Truman show that we call the enclosure, from where they can operate outside of time and space and interact with us via the fourth dimension, from where they can create bridges from here to there using the principles of entanglement that are using the quantum fields and the time continuum flux fields, from where they can go back and forth in time as they please, because the only place where we have time is inside the enclosure, not outside of the enclosure, because there's no time. There's the fourth dimension and other levels of reality that are not a dimension in itself, but it's a feature of our reality that has been engineered for the purpose of being able to enter into the closure without being actually affected by and being influenced by what is going on inside the enclosure. Okay, so that there you go. So that's why I'm not going down that path here, because that's not where I want to go, because right here we are working with the concepts of who and what we are, as in not an I that are experiencing life, not as an I that are participating in this experience of life because we have chosen to do so. My foundational understanding is that we are all, that those of us who are here now today are here involuntarily. We are here by either enslavement, by contracts, by casualty of war, by some of the original regenesis programs, some of the original restoration programs, some of the original rehabilitation programs, all depending on where you came from, which system that linked up to here, based upon some original workstation technology that were engineered as part of the Pillar Project with the goal of reuniting humanoid and human races in the original realities, under the original collectives, under the original universal lineages, in the original universal cycles. So just to put that in context. And the reason why we're here is because the timeline event that messed up our entire sector, and that led to the decomposition, regression, and destruction of the original gene codes, the original code streams, the original reality fields, the original organic vessels that were not organic as we understand it because they were density vessels, but in that were connected to consciousness via a type of energy system that linked up to a template that had the potentials of developing different forms of consciousness, from where we could become living, experiencing beings that were unfolding different potentials into different reality fields, from where we could transform energy, transform realities, transform ourselves, develop our consciousness, progress, whatever we were, via the universal cycles, via the constructions of the different reality fields, and via the different developmental programs, and via the different ways of existing in that manner that we chose to exist, that we chose the worlds we became part of, and did that to develop the worlds for the highest good of the many, to develop via the constructions we chose to become part of. We engineered our vessels, our energy system, and our template construction to be able to participate in the realities we chose to become part of. And by that, we are our own creators, we are our own gods, we are the own seeders, we are those who are that in between all sorts of states of existence. And by that, we can be many things, we can be nothing, we can be everything, we can be whatever we want to be. It's just a matter of construction, it's a matter of engineering, it's a matter of the energy system, it's a matter of knowledge, how to work with energy and consciousness to create life forms, to create life force, to create whatever is needed to keep the universal cycle going, that are perpetuating eternal, they continuously run different series of scenarios from being ignited and come spawn into life. When life forms enter or consciousness enter into these constructions, they come to life, and once consciousness is done there, it moves on and go into another circle, another cycle, another level, another construction, another reality fields, another levels of existence. And then the previous constructions go dormant, the previous universal cycles go dormant, and by that they will remain dormant until new types of potential, new type of consciousness, new types of abilities, new types of forms, new types of whatever comes to that place ignited, and then it will go on forever, on and on and on and on. And that is what we could say the constant wheel of the true understanding of the law of the cycles, the law of consciousness, and the law of energy in circulation. So with that understanding that these cycles, these constructions, these reality fields, these template structures, these energy systems, these existences are always under the laws of the reality fields they're part of. And that's that understanding where we say for the highest good of the many is always for the construction, is always for the reality fields, is always for the eternal cycles of existence. It's always for the highest standards, the highest purity rate, and the highest progression rate for all life forms, for all implicated, for everything that prospers within these different cycles, within these different constructions, within these different reality fields, within these different life forms. Okay, so we kind of just established that one. And that's what I touch ground with in the progression sciences. That's where I explain that in details and in context. So you understand what is the lower energy system, what is the higher energy system, what is the template sciences, what are the constructions, what are the reality fields, and going into here in the systemic energetic awareness forum, the new material there, the Hope Project, where we here are beginning that one with working a little bit with past lives and the understanding of that, leading us into how can we then reconfigure now that our reality field is resetting to the original density 1 outer domain configuration, which means that our activation is no longer something that has to do with ascension into density 2, but actually has to do with a realignment with the reality field we're actually part of. And then how do we learn to deal with these challenges and what comes with these new types of reality from where we will grow into new future human civilization. Okay, so that was just a quick sum up. So just to kind of get that's not where I want to go here, because you can do the progression sciences, you can buy the material there. There are courses to be bought, and by you buying my courses, you're also supporting the nonprofit branch I have on my material, both as the whole Changemaker material where I put podcasts out there, but also the whole academy, the progression sciences, the systemic energetic awareness forum, and what I put out here. When you buy course material, you also support that I can do nonprofit, that is put out material for free, so more can have the information, because not everybody has the opportunity to pay for the material as it is now. And many will say, well, it's overly expensive compared to what you might pay in the States. But you must remember, I live in Denmark. We have 40% tax, plus I pay VAT. So in the manner, 2/3 of what I have on an income are given to my governmental institutions that I'm part of in Denmark. And I do not oppose that per se. Because this creates a huge security for the ones that do not have the means to do so. We have free education, we have free hospitals, you can go to the doctor for free, you have more or less free dental planning, you have access to free schools, you could go to university for free, and onward and so forth. So we are all chipping in to pay a type of society where everybody has equal rights to the degree that is possible amongst different groups of people that have different opinions on what is equal rights and how this is supposed to unfold as part of a political ideologies and political systems that are upholding reality fields as we know of them today inside the Truman Show, which again is just another construction, another institutions, another way of perceiving reality, creating thought forms from where we perceive who and what we are. So we have a function, a classification, and a means to an end from where we perceive reality, right? So everything's construction. So just put that all in there and say, whoa, that was a huge download of information. Yes, but that's because I've been working with it for so long. And the point here is not for me to explain all of these things, but just so you know that I know, so that when you're now listening to this, you will understand I'm now looking into a segment of an enormous complex energy system of information, or a pattern of information that our reality field is based upon, and that the enclosure, which I explain more about in the New Reality host, the Higher Order Systemic Energetic New Reality Challenges course on the Stargates, and I explain about the sun, which you find on the website that are connected to this channel. So there you can get the deeper explanations in podcasts specifically tailored for that level of understanding. So when we work with the expanded awareness, we are always observant of all of the levels that are, but we choose to go into different segments where we focus our attention so that we can investigate that level where we understand the dynamics and the processes of that level as part of a mean to expand our own awareness of what reality is. Because for me, that's what life is, and that's what purpose of life is. The purpose of life is not to discover who and what I am, because clearly I've been many different versions, I've been many different lives, I've been on many different coach streams. At the end of the day, what am I really other than consciousness potentials expressed into an energy system that's expressed into a reality field that is composed of holographic radiation vibration energies that are all combined via different laws, which we could call dynamics of reality. So that's what it is. Dynamics, laws, fluctuation, processes. That's all there is. So how does all of these processes, dynamics and energies and potentials and different types of fleeting glimpses of meaning and purpose come into some kind of existence, that comes into some kind of understanding of how can we use that as a kind of a construct we create ourselves to experience reality? And again, experience is also a word was expire, expire, see X as a kind of looking from something from the outside and looking at it, which we say is that the observer. Well, the observer is technically part of the mind field. Experience is the whole concept of it, that you experience it, because when you have an experience, when you observe something, you have mental processes. When you experience something, it's like, as I used in another context, it's like, look at your hand. Look at your hand. You can observe your hand, which means you kind of see it two-dimensionally, right? But you can experience your hand, which means that you are then putting in all of your faculties. You can experience, is it hot? Is it cold? You can open and close your hand. You can look at your hand from different angles. You can see it's different. You can see it's attached to the arm. You can feel your arm. You can feel your body. You can feel all the bodily functions. And you see your hand as if it's something that's different from the rest of you because it's a little bit distant from your face, but you put your hand to your face. Then you say, well, I feel my face. I experience my face via the sensory system in the derma or the skin. So I sense that, which I know is, if you have studied it, you'll know it's a process of your central nervous system, peripheral nervous system working together, combining electrochemical processes of sensation into information systems that the brain interprets in a specific way, putting it into different layers of the neural network from where it kicks off different types of energetic packages of energy or information that connects the synapses and activates the dendrites and activates previous experiences that are coded into the hypothalamus, that are coded into the hippocampus, that are coded into the limbic system and the little brain, and then the great brain or the cerebellum then interprets it according to what we have experienced with this sensing of the hand. If we sense it as a good thing, then we call it love. If we sense it as a bad thing, we call it violence. If it hurts, it's violence. If it's nice and caressing and creates serotonin and oxytocin, then it's love. If it does the other thing, then it can either be some kind of screwed up dopamine kick or adrenaline kick or what have you, all depending on which side of the amygdala that is activated. So there you go. We can say that's part of the experience knowing this. But we can also go in and in that just experience on all these multiple layers of knowledge, of observing, of feeling, of sensing, of functionality, of distance, of whatever. Then you begin to have what experience is. That's multi-layered registration of different processes. Very fancy, right? But we're here creating new thought forms. So why is it so important to create new thought forms? Because if you just say this is a hand, are you then experiencing anything? No, you're just doing your cognizant terminology linking up to this is a hand. If I tell you this is not a hand, as you know, what was his name? There was an artist, I forgot his name. He made a picture of a pipe and then he said, this is not a pipe. And he did it in French, and I'm not very good at French. So c'est une people, whatever. I don't know how to speak French, right? But that's the label of it. I forgot his name. I was actually quite, when I was younger, I was actually quite infatuated with his art because he had this weird dreamlike, cross reality, surreal way, not like some of the other ones, but in a nice way where he actually made things that looked like something, but you got this weird thing in it that it kind of made you think. It kind of created cognitive dissonance. It's kind of, yeah, that's not really possible. Or is it? Is it real? Is it not? And these kind of things. Anyway, so we work with the constructs of mind here, and we need to deconstruct the constructs of mind because we know that most of what's going on in the mind is, as far as science know, are the sum of the neural network and what we have coded into it. So everything we're perceiving are technically something we have coded in or has been indoctrinated with, or it has been coded in via our interaction with social media, TV, books, what have you, schooling, all of these kind of things. So in a way, the neural networks, the brain itself, has not really much to offer other than being a storage unit that interprets reality according to the information we have loaded into the brain. Not that it is a computer, but the word computer means to compute something. It means you put something in, then it's being processed, and then something comes out of it. You compute. You can compute with a calculator as well. You put in numbers, you put them together, and you come up with a result. So that's what computing technically means. So we can say the brain is in that way a processing unit that deals with different levels of information that it then puts together so it makes context, so it makes a whole, so we can use and function ourselves in this reality in a manner that is self-upholding, self-preserving, and self-identifying, so that whatever we experience, our brain will then tell us this is what it is, and then we will identify ourselves with it, because that's kind of how we survive. If we look at things, if we perceive things, if we experience things, and we go in and say, I perceive this to be real, I perceive this to be something that I can participate in, then we are connecting with reality field as it is made in the Truman Show, the interactive developmental programs, from where it will, by the law of reciprocity, mirror back to us what we are perceiving, what we think we are perceiving, and what we want to perceive. That's the comfort zone. So that's the psychodynamic processes where we create a personality matrix. We create a sense of self via our experiences from childhood and adolescence and as young people and as growing up people and whatever we're doing in our maturing of being part of life as we experience it. So life is a sum of experiences, psychodynamic processes, and energetic dynamics. So that is what it is. And the good exercise is here to always kind of say, yes, I choose to experience this. And then we can go up in energy where we begin to have it as a multi-layered experience. Or we could go down in energy where we focus on one finger. And then we only focus on the finger and everything else vanishes because we are now focused on that finger. And we can focus so deeply on one finger that we can actually become part of it. That's another interesting level of perception. We, instead of just seeing it from the outside and what have you, we can go in and introspect it instead of extrospected as in kind of outside and in. We can go and introspect it as from inside and out. So then we begin to work with realities as something that's outside and inside. And the moment we begin to do that, we have the outer human, the inner human. We have the outer body processes. We have the inner human processes. The outer body processes are the ones that goes with our biofield, our molecular state, pooping, peeing, eating, all of these kind of things, the tangible reality. Even though we think we are in a tangible reality, science tells us we are in this weird empty space of where there are few actually glimpses of energy that works together to create what we understand as reality. That's why I call it an artificial construction, which it is. It's based upon alien technology. And then we have the inner human, where we are conceptualizing all of these tangible experiences of energy that fluctuates in different variations of forms, hot and cold, weather, what have we. All of these are energies, but we perceive them to be weather. We perceive it to be rain. We perceive it to all of these atomic structures to be this or that or whatever, when the matter of the fact is they are elements. They are different energetic structures that are put together that you can decompose and put into machinery that will then tell you these are nothing but wave patterns and particle patterns. They have nothing to do with what we experience as a tangible reality. It's a non-existent tangible reality. It's energy, fluctuations of energy in different wave patterns and particle patterns that are put together because our brain perceives it to be real, because our eyes are engineered in a manner so it looks within the visible spectrum of light and see that this is real while these energetic input hits our eyes, the cells in our eyes, and the brain interprets it to be light, to be blue, to be red, to be whatever, because of the way the cells are engineered. In our eyes, animals look differently at things. Nocturnal animals look things differently. They are more infrared oriented. They see energy in a different way. Daylight animals see other things in a different way. Dogs smell more than actually process information of what they're seeing with their eyes. They are actually interpreting more via the olfactory senses, smelling things. They get colors from smelling things, as far as I can see with my clairvoyant side, which is an addition to my visual side, my sensing visual side, because clairvoyance is both sensed and seen. But the interpretation of what is sensed and seen at the same time all depends on the neural network. And clairvoyance is typically linked to the emotional field and the limbic system. So unless the frontal lobes and the mental processes that goes in and deduce this and work with it as a complex information system of different bits of code systems that are put together to create what we call a reality that functions in a holographic, interactive way, then we're not really perceiving reality. We're not really seeing reality as it is, because reality is seeing things as they truly are, as processes and dynamics. Without labeling it, without classifying it, just experiencing it. But again, we cannot stay in that flux all the time. We can do that in meditation, where we get these glimpses. We can do with eyes shut. We can do it with eyes open. We can lie down. We can sit up. We can walk. We can run. We can dance. We could do whatever. Different ways of working with our body that creates different flux, that creates different flow, that creates different experiences, that creates different versions of existence at that moment, where we choose to have that movement or non-movement, or sitting or rising or walking or lying down, or whatever we're doing. All are experiences. They are all processes of energy which we choose to participate in, which we choose to observe, which we choose to cognizantly become aware of, where we then begin to process it as a thought form, where we then engineer it into, I am experiencing this. I am part of this now. I sense this now via my emotional field. I think I determine it is this via my mental field, but technically it's just the body that are part of a different type of fluctuation of energy that hits the nervous system, that hits the processes of the body, that then kicks off the electrochemical processes, then being driven through I think it's the efferent, I can't remember, parts of from the central nervous up to the central nervous system and up to the brain, which then becomes the interpreter of what it is. So if you as a child has learned that when you touch something, and you had a parent that constantly said, when you touch that thing that you there feel like that, then it's cold, when in matter of the fact it's hot, because I'm playing with an idea here. So you have a child that you put the child's hand over the fire, and you constantly tell the child, this is cold. Put the hand over the fire. This is what you're feeling here is chilliness, it's cold, and it makes you freeze. Because fire can actually do that if you get burned, your body gets overloaded and actually feels like it's cold. Whereas we have culturally decided that we tell our children, this is hot and don't put your hand over it because it's dangerous, right? But you could do that reconditioning. You can tell people something the complete opposite, and they will have a different experience of reality. Similarly with boys that are colorblind, you can say that that's the color red, but they will always see it in a bluish tone, but they can't see the color red because their cells in their eyes are not engineered to be able to do so. So they experience the color red in a different way. When they go through in traffic, they have to learn that when the light is on the top, then I have to stop. When the light is at the bottom, then I can drive. Where the rest of us, we're just saying when it's red, we stop. When it's green, we drive. Again, the concepts of experience. So we hereby understand that even though I always talk about clearing the three lower fields, and the three lower fields are the ones that are recirculated, inside our reality as part of different types of engineered interactive reality potential, segments of reality within what we perceive to be a planet, which actually is not. It's a holographic overlay. It's part of alien technology, and there I go on, right? You can say, well, what does that mean? Why do we need to do that exercise? We do that exercise to get ourselves free of the enslavement of pre-cognizant concepts. Putting it that way, it's the beginning step of awareness, where you deconstruct everything so that you are no longer slave to your belief system. You're no longer slave to your interpretation of sensation in a specific manner as good or bad. You deconstruct the understanding of your bodily processes to be something that you are actually. Most people are not very connected to their bodies. So there is an exercise which I practiced years ago, where I took, because I discovered that I was up in my head all the time. I didn't really feel my body. And I needed to feel my body because I needed to know what I was. What am I? I am this physical form. I got my emotion. I got my mental processes. I'm 3 layers. So that's where I began. And I began sensing my body again, and I began doing the what we should all know and should do by default, but we don't, because, oh yeah, we're up in the head, I need to do this first, I need to do that first, blah, blah, blah. We're all going on somewhere where we need to do something, right? So we're overlooking the processes of the body, and the body kind of suffers under it because it tells you, I need to pee now, my bladder's full. It's as though you say, does the body have an eye? Well, it has this kind of intelligence that tells you the bladder's full. It has this kind of intelligence that tells you food is needed. It has this kind of intelligence that tells you time to poop, time to release feces. It has this intelligence that tells you, you have now put your shoulders too close to your ears, so now you've got headache. These are kind of what we call primitive intelligent processes, as we see it in amoebas and all the levels of reality that has this kind of primitive intelligence of being able to function, being able to process information, being able to process energy from where there is an outcome. Small computing systems, right? So that's kind of the body where we need to reconnect. And I'm very reconnected to my body. I feel my body all the time. When I'm sitting, I'm feeling my feet, my legs, because I can have this multi-layered awareness. I can talk to you about this. I can pick between different layers of my brain what I want to say here. But most of the time, I'm just picking on a topic, and then I let what is in my fields combine itself and come into this podcast where I share this information, because the goal is of this podcast is that I want to share that life is the sum of experiences. And then I blast into my fields. Okay, pick up everything that combines experience. What does experience mean? And then I begin to compute the concept of experience with what I've already stored in my mind field, because the mind field is the extra layer, the addition to the neural network. And that's what science hasn't discovered yet. And the mind field is not the mental field, because for me, the mental field are part of the construction itself. So that's part of the program's mental processes, right? Cognitive processes using neural network are technically mental processes. The Hindus see it a little bit differently. The esoteric teachings see it a little bit differently. But I like to make that distinction, saying, okay, the mental processes are connected to what we call the human base program levels of perception, whereas the mind field is connected to when we begin to work with really the computing processing unit functionality that the mind field has, from where we can perceive reality, perceive information, and receive enormous amounts of downloads that we can put into a neural network once we have learned to silence the mental processes, or the processes of mind, if you like, the neural network. And that's why we do meditation, in my perspective. Meditation is a tool to silence the mind, silence the observer, silence the inner voice, silence the ongoing processes of always perceiving, constructing, understanding, defining, what is this, what is that, why does it do this, who am I, what is this, how am I to interpret, blah, 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 blah. That constantly goes on and gives stress in the body. Because how does the body actually works best to talk about the body? That's where we can also meditation, reconnect to our body, or we can lie down or do yoga or whatever, where we use our breathing techniques to reconnect to the physical form. Reconnect. You can hear when I go up in my mind and stop breathing. So that's why I kind of go into the body again. And that's also if we have emotional upheaval or electrochemical processes that we perceive to be emotional upheavals, because we are experiencing something that is not really in coherence with what we have defined to be our perception of reality, what we have defined for our energy system to be the lower fields, to be what we will perceive to be acceptable or not acceptable, all depending on our cultural standards and what we have experienced in our life, in this life and previous lifetimes. That will define how our body responds to different energetic experiences. Again, for some, there are a higher level of desire. For others, there are lower level of desires. For some has a higher drive. For others have a lower drive. Some have more energy. Some have less energy. Just look at the hyper kids. They're like little spinning tops all over the place all the time. It's amazing what they can do. It's like wind them up and put it on the floor, and they will be like a Duracell battery all over the place. So they have a completely different neural network. They have a different central nervous system and they have a different peripheral nervous system. They sense in a different way. They are much more cognizant in a sensuous way as I have developed as well, where I'm sensing everything. And at the same time, it links up to my brain without actually using a lot of information energy to process that sensing, but just so kind of that my body feels calm and aware, and this is good and this is fine, because this, whatever is in this form right now, has things under control. Sometimes it's very unpleasant, all depending on what comes into my field, and then my body's not happy, and then it shakes and it freezes and it buzzes and it does all sorts of weird things that most people don't have the experience of. When things come into their field, they just feel a little bit nauseous, a little bit dizzy, whatever, but then they go up into their brain and they go on because they're not sensing their body. But because I sense my body in all its layers, I can feel what's going on in my bowels. If I focus on that one, I can feel my uterus, I can feel my anus, I can almost feel my kidneys. I know that's not possible, but I know what they are. At least I can put my hands on, and then I can do an energetic rapport with them. I can exchange energy from that cognizant, slightly intelligent type of energy that are in my kidneys, as in kind of put my hand on, because I'm a healer as well. Are you functioning well? And then I will feel this like a little dog that puts its snout and give you a slight puff, as in kind of, no, I need this. Not that it's saying I need this, but then I get the information from the kidney itself. Oh yeah, there's a bit of calcification there. There's some residual energies. I need to clear that out. And then I heal it with what my kidney tells me that it needs, not what I want to impose on my kidney, but what my kidney tells me it needs. The energy itself tells me that it is in disorder, and by that disorder, I create order by putting on my healing hands and using the light codes in different variations. I have different sets in my right hand and different set in my left hand, and I can use that in different manner. So I can work with that, and that's how I worked as a healer. I did not interpret pre-hand, so to speak, what I was to do with my client. I put my hands on the client, and then the client's body told me itself, this is what I need. And then I could work deeper, and then whatever was, for instance, why does my kidney get this easiness to calcification, aside from it's a kind of genetic feature of my family? Well, it's also because there is this processing of the water element, so to speak, and the way that water is today is not particularly the best way for our body as it is today. It never really was. That's the interesting thing. We are very our body is composed of 60% water, and we need fluids. But the way that whatever we could get, whether it's from nature or it's from rain or whatever, even the olden days, the different crystallization processes in H2O and the amoebas and the parasites and the whatever is there has never really been healthy for our physical form. Isn't that interesting that we're kind of living in a world where we're depending on water, and the water, even in the olden days, as far back as it goes, has a level of contamination that's actually unhealthy for us? Interesting, right? Same with the soil, same with the plants, same with the trees, same with the fruit, same with the vegetables. If we really decompose what they are and we go beyond that, we have said, oh yes, apples are healthy, and you really look what an apple is and what's composed of, what's happened to that apple and the processes of it, and who had put their little insectoid pores on it, and what the code systems are, and all these kind of things. Then you can say portions of it is healthy for instance, the glucose level is good for the brain. Apples are good for the brain, not just for the health, but also for the brain. But if you go deeper into that, then we'll say, well, there are other levels of the apple that is not so healthy. And then you can go in via, again, putting your hands on and begin to work with by looking into what does the nutrients in the apple, where does that go? Where does that flow in our body? And then work with these levels where it flows to, and then go in and adjust and balance that discord that there is, so that once we eat that apple, then everything we eat from that apple will then be absorbed in our body, and there will be left very little to discard of it. So that's another level of working with food, to have that awareness. So in this understanding that we can go in and out of the eye, we can say, I am this, I am that. Well, if we cling on to it and create these comfort zone, rigid structures where everything becomes a threat to what we have created, because that's a way we can elevate ourselves into being important or being this or being that, because I have studied this, then I am that, or because I know this, then I am that, or because I master this, I can do this, or because I know how to run a bike, then I'm better than anybody else, or whatever we have created of ideas. If we deconstruct all of them as saying, well, instead of saying I am good at this, or I am bad at this, or I'm valuing things emotionally, just see it as an experience. Right now, I'm having an experience of driving a bike, not valuing it, not saying it's good or not saying it's bad. If it doesn't go well, laugh about it. If whatever happens, figure out a way to address it so it becomes an experience. And then you choose, is it going to be a good experience or a bad experience? That's a choice. And then that becomes the experience you want to have. And that takes an enormous, if you fall and you really hit your knee or something and you say, how can I turn that into a good experience? Well, should you turn it into a good experience? Is it not okay that it's a bad experience? Does it have to be good all the time? So that's some of the things when you talk about, well, Randy, I would really like to know how you completed the past lives that you have gone through. Some of them I have completed, some of them I haven't completed yet because there are layers to them I don't know how to complete as reality is now, but it will come eventually. So I'll just have to wait until that surfaces on its own, being patient about the experience that is connected to that past life, as in the Buddhist monk that chose to go into the void. Well, I'm still here, aren't I? Not a success, wouldn't you say? Or perhaps that version actually completely decomposes, but I also know the ETs and the keepers and the maintainers or whoever's run this Truman Show, they have different plasma vials where they have different combinations of our original genetic composition. So by that, I mean the ones we were before we got into the Truman Show, got these 3 lower fields attached to our higher order energy system and got this physical form from where we are now stuck inside the enclosure, recirculating until there's nothing more to recirculate, like the Duracell batteries that run out of juice and then it's being discarded. So that's what we are, batteries, upholding an artificial reality for reasons and purposes that are not really pro-human and for our highest benefit. But one part of that one, again, when we look into all, in my perspective and how I look at things, no matter what kind of religion I look at, it's based upon, for commoners, it's based upon being some sort of enslavement, some sort of liberation. You have the Jews that left Egypt, the Exodus. You have the Christians that St. Paul talks about how Christians are slaves, but they can become slaves of Christ, which means the liberation, because then they will get a place in the kingdom of heaven. So the whole goal was to become part of the Christ field so that they would elevate and ascend into heaven, which are being used in other thought forms today and other spiritual teaching systems today. We have the Hinduism that goes with getting rid of our karma or negative karma, so create positive karma so we get a better position. I don't know if they actually get to the point where they get thrown off the wheel and not reincarnate again. Probably is. We have that idea with nirvana and enlightenment and cease the cessation of constant recirculation, so to speak, no more rebirth, and onward and so forth, which is also liberation. So we could say for us that lives in the Western world, because there are still people around the planet that are living under circumstances that are absolutely inhuman, and their reality and perception of reality is profoundly different. They are still battling for the primary needs to get water, to get food, to just get by day, to survive different forms of abuse and violence and criminal systems and corrupt systems and what have you. But for those of us who are in a more fortunate position, being part of the Western world, whatever that level may be, most of us are not struggling to the same degree, but there are. You remember, I have worked with drug addicts. There are different psychological issues. We could say the Western world, well, perhaps most of us do not struggle on everyday basis. More I have to be into, unfortunately, but most of our processes are psychodynamically. They are a part of the endurance of life, dealing with life, the challenges of life, the psychological challenges of life, of self, of others, and how we belong in this world or not belong, and who we are and what we are, and all of these self-identification. So in that, when we talk about the practices of working with our 3 lower fields, deconstructing all of these identification, saying, I am my body. No, you're not. You're in a body that functions that way, as in kind of saying, if I gave you this idea when you feel the need to poop, and I tell you, you are the poop, and you'll say, no, I'm not a poop. I'm not feces. And I say, actually it is. It's part of you. No, it's not. It's part of my body. There you'll be completely clear. That's disgusting. That's not something that you are, but it's something I ate. It's something I took externally, put it into my mouth so my body could get nutrients, and what comes out of the feces are the discarded leftovers that my body can't use. So the feces is not me, it's part of the food I ate. But if you go into ancient cultures, they had this idea that what you ate you became part of, and because they were energetically connected. Such as if you ate a specific type of animal, you would get the powers of the animal, because you would then eat part of its spirit. Even though you had released most of it, it would still have a remnant of it, a kind of an imprint in the meat. And by that, you could become the lion, or you could dress yourself up in the skin of the lion or whatever. And then you would have the powers of the animal that you single-handedly had conquered and devoured. And by that had become of its original spirit. You became part of the spirit of that animal, similar to the spirit of Christ, right? So again, primitive thought forms. So with that understanding, we also say, well, you say, am I then becoming the spirit of the apple? You dress up like an apple, right? Sorry, my mind just went off in a little bit of a tangent there. Okay, so in that one, we understand, okay, we might be the body, but we also know we're not the body, because when we sleep, the body's there and we're not there. So where do we go, so to speak? What our perception, the inner human perception level, that's the emotional field, the mental field. So these are the more subtle fields that are connected to the physical form. And how we sense things and how we interpret what we sense defines that concept of I that is based psychologically. So you have a concept of I that's based upon biology, and you have a concept of I that are based upon psychology, and you have a concept of I that is based upon mental processes. And this is where we go in and deconstruct and say, this body has these functions, and I observe, I experience these body functions. You can observe it and then by interpret it, or you can just experience it as kind of, yeah, I got, there's now this weird movement in my stomach, or I got this pain there, or if I pinch myself, ouch, I feel that. But that's just, you don't need to value it. You don't need to put on, oh, that was good or bad or whatever. You can just experience that was whatever. You don't even have to put any words on it. Just try and pinch yourself and just be in that experience of pinching yourself, and then see what your body does with it. Instead of trying to say, oh, that hurts or whatever, stop. Just experience it. And then you will actually see, if you do it long enough, if you stop putting all sorts of classifications on it, it will actually stop hurting, which is interesting. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to be harmful to my little body here, but so that's a kind of a weird experience. So you can endure a lot of stuff, as in we have these preconcepts of what we can endure bodily pain. And I want to continue that one in the next podcast.